Okay. First of all, I appreciate everybody being here. I'd like to take the time to thank you all for coming out. I'd like to thank Dave, Kate, and all the staff at Elite Fitness for having confidence in me to give me the opportunity to be here today. Dave said this is my 35th year of doing this. My first job was I was hired at the University of Pittsburgh by then head coach Jackie Shaw. I made $12,000 a year. I had no assistants. I had to do everything myself, which meant going in and vacuuming the carpet, cleaning machines, cleaning mirrors on a daily basis, plus be responsible for training over 100 athletes. Here's the problem with this country right now. Technology. How many people go to an Apple store, you have your Apple phone, an Apple store, and please excuse me because I will drop a few F-bombs, is fucking crowded. So much for technology. You got all these people in here with problems. What has technology done? I could solve all the functional movement screen problems in this country right now. You know what it is? Get rid of the computer, get rid of video games, let kids go outside and play again. Let the body solve complex motor problems in a chaotic environment. Let the brain figure things out. The brain learns by getting things wrong. How many of you in here are new parents? New parents, stop helping your kids. If the kid's in the back seat and he can't clip the fucking seatbelt, don't turn around and say, here, let mommy and daddy help you. Let him figure it out. That's how the brain learns. And you'll begin to understand the primal brain was designed for one thing, problem solving and movement. That's all it was designed for. So get rid of functional movement screens, get rid of all these different screens out here that people are charging you enormous amounts of money to be certified in, and let kids go back to playing. I've always said the worst thing in the world is a computer. It's ruined the work habits of America and work habits of this country. Anyway, let me get back to where I was. It's an honor to be here, and I will rant rave every once in a while, worse than Dave Tate ever had. It's good to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. My good friend Kevin Yoxon is here. I'll tell you how screwed up this profession is that we all love so very much. Kevin Yoxon and I were involved in one of the most bizarre interview processes in the world back in early, I believe it was the 80s, Kev?
That was early 90s.
Early 90s with the Miami Dolphins. They flew myself, Kevin Yoxon, I believe you're in Minnesota,
Yep.
Gary Wade, who was the strength coach of the Detroit Lions, and Mike Wolf, I don't even remember what Mike Wolf was at the time, down to Miami on the same day. Not every other day, they flew us all on the same day, stuck us in the same room, all four of us, and all four of us just sat there and looked at each other like, why are we here? And then we go in and interview with Don Shula and come out, and none of us got the job. They gave it to John Gamble at Virginia, who I don't even think even interviewed. Correct me if I'm wrong. Never interviewed, but this is how screwed up this profession is. Anyway, let me begin by my first slide. I have to put this up here because I'm criticized so much for my desk. So, I looked at one of the most intelligent men in the world said about his desk. And trust me, my desk makes his desk look clean. This is my life right here. If a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, of what then is an empty desk a sign of? You guys that are real organized, and I go in your office and there's nothing on the desk, you make me very nervous. You got too much time on your hand. Trust me, I got post-it notes all over my desk. None of that, you call my wife, there's post-it notes in the bedroom. Not things to do for the day, not my honey-do list. There's things in there about training of what needs to be accomplished in the process of training. And trust me, I take an hour out of my day every day to read. You're never too smart to learn. In fact, the best advice I give young coaches right now is learn how to coach. Don't worry about writing programs. That will come. Learn to coach your athletes. If you're in a performance institute, you're in the private sector, things change when you got to deal with 40 and 50 people at one time in a team setting. That's a whole completely different story because you better be very dynamic and very flexible. This is why my desk looks like it does, because I really don't have enough time to keep it clean because I'm on the floor. Even at my age, and I'll be 58 this year, I never leave my floor, and at the end of the day, I'm gassed. And the reason I'm gassed is I spend all my energy on my athletes every day. I do something a little different, is I like to make acknowledgments or thank the people that have influenced my life and helped me learn what I've learned. And I'm continuing to learn. And like I've always said, the more I learn, the more I realized I don't know anything. The more I got to keep learning. In 1997, I had an epiphany. I don't even remember how I did it. I believe it was my assistant, Mark Cossey, when I met back at the University of Pittsburgh in 1997 for the second time. Got in touch with Dave Tate. And somehow, we convinced Dave to bring Louis to the University of Pittsburgh. I figured out in 1997 that what we were doing in this country was not right. The problem is we suffer from academic myopia. They only teach us what they want us to know, and it's not a lot. Strength training did not originate at the University of Nebraska. Strength training has been around for years. The development of athletes has been around for years. I took a tour of Rome this past year, or 2 years ago, before I went to the Arizona Cardinals, which I'm very blessed to be at. And I saw the very first Olympic Stadium. I saw where everything took place. And believe me, it was in the 2nd century BC or whatever it was. It wasn't in the 1980s. So Louis came, oh, Mark. Here we go. Like I said, this is a problem with technology. Louis came to our facility. And for 4 hours, he ripped me a new ass. Oh boy. Now at that time, I had 2 choices. I could say, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's a powerlifter. My guys don't powerlift. Or I could look at myself and say, you know what? You don't know anything. So I went home and looked at myself and said, you know what? You don't know anything. Things are constantly changing, things are constantly evolving. I bought Dr. Zatsorski's book, Science of Practice Strength Training, the very first book I read. I went to visit Dr. Z 3 times. He was at Penn State, in the not so unhappy valley nowadays. I was at the University of Pittsburgh. The entire time that man has been at Penn State, not one time, as any strength and conditioning coach or coach of physical preparation, which I prefer to refer to it as, has walked into that guy's office and asked him a question. You gotta be kidding. The amazing thing after those 4 hours is after giving me myself a new asshole, his Dave Tate goes to me, don't worry, he likes you. I'm like, oh boy. What would it have been like if he didn't like me? So for the next couple of years, I went back and forth to Westside Barbell to learn from some of the strongest people in the world. One of the best things about being in Arizona, and there's a lot of guys up here, and I'm going to try and find his name, and I can't, is a guy, and there it is, this guy right here, Dan Paff. How many people know who Dan Paff is? One of the greatest minds I've ever met in the development of a power speed athlete. He's right on line with this guy who I had an opportunity, with the late great Charlie Francis, who I had an opportunity to develop a relationship with and call periodically. Dan Paff has taught me more in the past year about the development of power speed in an athlete than anybody has in my entire life. I go over there and I'm totally amazed just standing with the guy. What's great about Dan is now he's allowed me, in fact, the other day I took Mark Guigama, who's a strength coach for the San Francisco 49ers, one of Joe Kenn's former assistants. He comes to visit me every year. Dan allowed me to take him over, but the thing Dan said to me at the time, he says, buddy, stop asking me questions. Go start talking to my athletes. To me, that means he had opened up his life and his athletes to allow me to interrupt them to ask questions. But he's been a valuable, valuable source. You guys are killing me, Josh. Of information. Also, you'll see down here, all my assistants and interns. One thing I will say is I always hire people that are smarter than me. I don't want a bunch of mini-me's running around. I don't want people regurgitating everything I say. I don't want people to look like a 5'8" troll walking around the weight room. I don't want me's. I want somebody that can make me better, more intelligent. And every assistant I've had, I stole this guy off of you, Joe. Thank you. I've stole a lot of shit off of you, Joe. Thank you. I stole a lot of shit off of you, too. Thank you. It's all of these guys have been smarter than me. I just stole this guy right back off of Mississippi State. Anthony Paroli, who was one of my original interns at the University of Pittsburgh in 2007. Here's how this went. I called Dan Mullins just for professional courtesy. I said, Coach, I'm gonna steal Anthony Paroli off you. I'm offer a position on physical preparation staff at the Arizona Cardinals. He said, it's a great choice. You know, he's a great guy, done a great job for me. You'll really love him. I said, I know I have in 2007. That's why I'm taking him back. Here's my favorite part of the story. I called Brick Court. He's a strength coach for Mississippi State. Now here's what I respect about somebody. I said, Rick, Buddy Morris, Arizona Cardinals, Buddy, how you doing? Space exchange, pleasantry. I said, Rick, here's the bottom line. I'm still Anthony Paroli, back off you. Here's the response. There was no delay in the response, but here's what I respect. You motherfucker. I'm like, Rick, that is the best answer anybody could have ever given me in this entire world for what I just told him. But that's just going to show me how good Anthony was. But all these people have influenced me, or I still call and have been contributors to where my program has come. Joe Kenn said it best. We are in a process, we're in a society of just people regurgitating what everybody else says. I want somebody to regurgitate this one. Doggone it, Mark. There it is. I want somebody to regurgitate this. That's out of my own mouth. This is from Dan Marino, who wrote the book, Energy Medicine and Therapeutic Healing. Mr. Oshman was actually a professor at the University of Pittsburgh, and I had the chance to meet him. He signed my book, gave it to me, and after talking to him, I just went home, and just like Robert Plant, who wrote the words to Stairway to Heaven for Led Zeppelin, he just says, this just came to me. This just came to me. The human body is nothing more than an interdependent matrix system which communicates with and amongst itself all day long through electronically charged molecules. You are nothing but an ever-evolving, fluctuating organism. The self-regulating, supercompensating are nothing more than the bioelectric field is held built on one thing. What's that one thing? Survival. That's the whole basis of adaptation. We live in a world where information changes rapidly. Information is delivered and disseminated to society at an alarming rate. The problem is now the internet. The internet makes it seem like nothing ever happened before 1990. We were just a bunch of guys walking around with our heads chopped off, just guessing. There were no books, nobody talked to anybody, there was no research reading. Nothing happened until the internet came on the site. The problem is, this has created the illusion of the expert, or what I call the guru on the mountain. Unless you know what you're looking for, too many people buy into what the guru on the mountain says. He's read a couple lines, now all of a sudden he's an expert. It's amazing how the less they know, the more strongly opinionated they are. This in years and years of research from this gentleman, this just came to me one night, and this made me realize the importance of how we need to understand the role of adaptation and how the human body responds to the external stimuli or training stressors that we put on it. As I'll bring up in a couple minutes here, we are really not coaches of physical preparation, we are stress managers. How do you manage the stressors that are imposed upon your athlete? We are stress managers. We are innate problem solvers. Problem in sport is determining how to solve a motor task. We don't give the human body enough credit. We really don't. The human body is not stupid, people. The human body has its unbelievable ability to figure things out. In fact, when you look at all these different screens, it doesn't take into account how anatomically and anthropometrically we are all different. So there's going to be variations in everybody's movement patterns. If I give everybody the same complex motor task in this room to solve, we're not all going to solve it the same, are we? We're going to solve it based on what's most efficient for our body. When my daughter was going to be a nurse, I told her two things you got to understand. That skeleton that hangs in the corner of the doctor's office, that's the perfect skeleton. That's not everybody. Everybody's uniquely built differently. Everybody structurally is differently. The second thing I made her do is I made her read the book, The Stress of Life, by Hans Selye, the Canadian endocrinologist who coined the term stress. Has anybody ever read that book? Precursor to a nap, isn't it? That fucking book, man. One page and I'm out like a light. I'm like, geez, Hans, can you give me something here to hold on to? But it's a book that I think everybody needs to read to understand how the body adapts to stress and how uniquely each individual handles stressors. In 2002, Tommy Myslinski, who's my assistant at the Cleveland Browns, first bought, the young NFL team that bought the Omega Wave. And what the Omega Wave, which I'll get into in a minute here, allowed us to do was assess how each individual athlete was dealing or accommodating the stresses that were imposed upon them by the game or the sporting activity itself and our training. If we all did the same workout in this room on the same day, and I put everybody in the Omega Wave, we'd all have a different response, would we not? We don't all respond the same. And that's the greatest thing about the human body, is that everybody is structurally from an organism standpoint, different. We don't all respond the same to the same training methods. And that's why everybody, that's why I tell people, I'm no longer a plan A guy, I'm a plan B guy. Things don't go according to plan. They never have, they never will. You don't believe me, ask the guys who had the program for D-Day. Developing appropriate motor patterns, sequence of movements, arranged in time and space, one common commonality amongst all athletes is what? Movement. You got to be able to move. I don't care how strong you are. Larry Fitzgerald is not the strongest receiver in the world, but he's one of the best, isn't he? There has to be a balance in everything we do. Not one biomotor task predominates or dominates over the other ones. If it was all about strength, trust me, I'd go strictly west side and that'd be it. But it's not. There are many different biomotor abilities we have to develop in our athletes to help them achieve optimal performance levels. As I said before, all movement begins in the brain. If you really want to get the brain's attention, slow things down, or better yet, create awareness. Awareness creates cognition. Cognition creates motor learning. You'd be surprised what happens when you make somebody aware of something and slow things down and allow the brain to figure things out. There's a guy named Maurice Feldenkrais, French dancer, no longer around. But if you research him, does some great things with movement patterns. One of the ways we ingrain in our biomechanical application of sprinting is we have them lay on the ground. Now you're going to think, lay on the ground? We don't sprint lay on the ground. No, we don't. But what happens when you lay on the ground? You become totally relaxed. The body doesn't have to seek stability. What are you going to do? Fall? Sure, you're on the fucking ground. But the degrees of freedom of motion or freedom of movement open up tremendously. So the way we do it to start getting the brain's attention to people, especially in people, which Carson Palmer's going through now with an ACL injury, is we just have them lay on the ground and very slowly calf smash, step toe over knee. Now, understand this. When we teach the calf smash, step toe over knee, the difference between an elite sprinter and a beginning or intermediate sprinter is, first of all, nobody lands under center of mass when they sprint. Nobody. The difference is the elite sprinter will only land 6 to 8 inches in front of center of mass. The intermediate or beginning sprinter will land 8 to 12 inches. That's a significant difference. So when we teach the calf smash, step toe over knee, we teach the heel strike to be on the toes of the ground support leg. When they get very good at that, we now start placing them against the wall. They push away from the wall, so now they start to feel pressure or tension under that ground support leg as they perform the calf smash, step toe over knee. Then we stand them up and do it. Then we move into our basic power speed drills. We always maintain, though, and it's always programmed into our active dynamic warm-up, that laying down on the ground and calf smashing, step toe over knee. That is always held within, so it is retained somewhere within our programming. Here's our mission statement at the Arizona Cardinals for our athletes. It is our job as physical preparation coaches to help our athletes achieve the highest level of physical performance using methods and means. When I say means, it's an exercise that yields the highest possible results at the lowest cost. High reward, low cost is a win-win every time, is it not? I am famous for not Olympic lifting. Shooting. If you want Olympic lift. That's your decision as a coach. Don't let me influence it. I'm just telling you what I've done and it's worked for me. I don't feel comfortable teaching Olympic lift because everywhere I go I see is a back extension with a reverse curl. And everybody puts straps around and makes it even look worse. Charlie Francis told me a long time ago, if it don't look right, it don't fly right. There's many ways to achieve chip row extension. James Smith said it best. Many roads lead to Rome. I added one more thing to that. Nothing is set in stone. And even the stuff that is set in stone, the 10 Commandments, we break them every day. The problem is it's dogmated into your brain because people say this is the only way to achieve an end result. No, it's not. There's many ways to achieve an end result. Can you think outside the box, or are you that lemming that follows everybody else off the cliff? Because you don't want to get out of status quo. You don't want to question status quo. I'm not here to tell you how to train. I'm just here to show you a system I've evolved over 35 years of doing this that has worked for me. And don't get me wrong now, I've made mistakes. I'll be the first to tell you I've made mistakes. When I first learned Westside Method, I made the mistake of trying to max out my guys for 3 weeks in a row. Killed them. Finally, my brain is, geez, that third week, we're getting fucking crushed. You think it's a good idea to cut the third week out and only go 2 weeks? Then I figured out, you know what? Not every position on a team has to max effort work. As you get closer to the ball, you're more strength dominant by default. The further you get away from the ball, the less strength dominant, more speed dominant. Now, does that mean my speed guys or guys further away from the ball don't lift? No, I didn't say that. Does that mean my guys up front just lift weights, never run? I didn't say that. The volume of work in each specific area is relevant or specific to the position that they play. I never could understand why you're training a defensive back like an offensive lineman. That's a cookie cutter program. It doesn't take a genius to run a cookie cutter program. It doesn't take a genius to say this, I'm old school. You know what old school is? An excuse for being lazy and not wanting to learn. There's too many people. There's somebody in this room, and I'm going to stick around because I want to hear House speak. I want to steal more shit off of Joe Frank. I want to hear Mike speak. I want to hear Chip speak. That's going to teach me something. Because I'm not going to stand up. I don't want to be the guru on the mountain. I got enough issues with my guys. I don't want other people across the country calling me with their issues. So I don't want to be that guru on the mountain that everybody comes down to and goes like Thulsa Dooma. Thulsa. That's not me. Don't want anything to do with that. All I want to do is coach my athletes. As a staff, we could spend a considerable amount of time spent reading and researching the most productive ways to train our athletes. I make my entire staff. And I have a 2-time Olympic gold medalist on my staff in Roger Kingdom and a former world record holder, I am Anthony Paroli. We take 1 hour a day when our athletes aren't around and you're going to research. That's all we do is research and read. That's a requirement if you're going to work for me. You must research. You must present something to all of us as a staff. There's like 3 of us that can help make us better. I don't have a philosophy. This drives me nuts. When you go to interview with head coaches, I love this. What's your philosophy? Oh, fuck. Philosophies are for philosophers. I have a system that has evolved over 35 years, and that system is constantly evolving and constantly expanding and constantly ongoing the more I learn. I'm telling you, somebody in this room today is going to tell me something I didn't know that I can apply, that you're using, that's worked with your athletes, that I can apply to my guys and my environment, my circumstances. Here's the goals of training. Number 1, increase the biological output of the organism. Improve the working ability of all the body systems as a whole. No system in the human body works independent of the other systems. In fact, one thing you learn from reading Hans Selye's book, The Stress of Life, is we really don't die from natural causes. We die from a system not being able, from other systems not being able to compensate for the system that is shut down or not continue to work. How many people have read the book, The Brain That Heals Itself? Remember that book, it talks about a college professor that had a stroke and went back to teaching college math at a high level. And when they started his rehab, they started him crawling again. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to teach my athletes to crawl like some of these experts, the guru on the mountain tells you to do. There's like a $4 million athlete, Joe, crawling on the ground because we need to teach him to crawl. It talks about, they taught him to crawl again, he was leaning against the wall. So they went through the process of the entire developmental stages. And we all go through the same development as human beings. The rate at which we achieve each of those stages is highly specific to the individual. Long and short of the story is, the guy went back to teaching high-level mathematics at college. When he died, and they did his autopsy, he had like a 3-centimeter lesion on his brain from the stroke. But the other parts of the brain, over time, made up for what the damaged part could no longer do. It's amazing what the human body can do. You know, everybody in this room talks about recovery, do they not? How can I recover and restore my athletes? What's the latest, greatest methods I can use to recover my athletes so I can have them train at a very high intense level the next day? The best recovery method is built into your body already. Sleep. Bingo. How hard is that? And you don't have to pay anything for it. I tell my guys at camp, because I don't care who you are, 5 days into camp, you're in a jet lag. The one anabolic thing we can tell our athletes to take is what? Sleep. How do we teach them to sleep better? It's in your system, and you don't have to pay for it. But here's the problem. It's not sexy. It's too simple. The basics are the basics for a reason, because they work. But everybody wants sexy, everybody wants innovative, everybody wants cutting edge, everybody wants new, latest, greatest, top secret. I love that word, top secret. Let me tell you something. If more than one person knows about it, it ain't a secret. It's that simple. The second is to increase the force and power output of the competitive exercise, activity, or movement. How you choose to do that is specific to you, the coach. I prefer to throw med balls and do jumps. If you look at a motor unit involvement or activation chart, med balls, plyos, jumps, maximum effort sprints are no different than Olympic lifts. What's easier to teach? What am I going to get the most bang for my buck out of? Especially for guys that have been in the league and are all beat up. We run a true speed program at the Arizona Cardinals. When I say speed, football is a game of repeated accelerations. There's no 300-yard shuttle in football. You kidding me? We're not a lactic state, it's alactic. 0 to 7 seconds, as Charlie Francis once said, is all free energy. You can expand that envelope, as Dan Pappas told me, to up to 9 seconds. Why are you doing 300-yard shuttles? That's not your foundation work. Please stop using that word too. It's not foundation. It's not a bioenergetic demand of the sport. There is no top secret, double probation, mythical, magical exercise program out there. Here's a secret. There's no secret. The Soviets are not withholding classified exercises that produce superhuman results. So stop going there. Berkeley Shansky said it best back in 1980. There are no new exercises. How many people know who Bart Bissinger is? Swedish hammer thrower, trained under Dr. Bondarchuk, great blog. Martin's a pretty smart dude. Very smart dude. He talks about, and if everybody's ever read Bondarchuk's transfer of training, all the Bondarchuk stuff, he talks about, specific preparatory exercises, general preparatory exercises, competitive development exercises, and then he talks about the competitive exercise itself. One of the specialized development exercises that Bondarchuk's hammer throwers do is they just take a plate and they stand and rotate. And they use up to a 100-pound plate. Now, here's what the guru on the mountain says, or the internet guru. Remember, the competitive development exercise is supposed to mimic the competitive exercise in amplitude and dynamic ability, is it not? Let's have them sit on a stability ball for greater core activation. Oh, come on, people. You just moved them further away from the competitive exercise. Why are you doing it? But that's what the guru on the mountain now says. Don't put them on a stability ball. You don't see circus acts. You don't see the elite athletes in the world doing circus acts. How many times do you think Usain Bolt has used a foot ladder? Or what people commonly refer to as a speed ladder? None. You don't see Usain Bolt and the fastest people in the world. Listen, you're going to hear 6 different people speak today. We all have our own systems. We all have our own way of doing things. What you need to understand is between all of us, there's common denominators. Look for the common denominators of what people do. Great coaches don't always mimic each other. The greatest athletes in the world have achieved those levels by doing different things, but there's common denominators. There's biomechanical and physiological truths that must be adhered to in every sporting activity.
Besides track and field coaches, how often do you ever see a seminar on kind of general sprint training or speed training or acceleration training?
I said, actually, it's slide 2. Here's what I go by, and here's what I ask you to go by anytime you're in a presentation situation.